Alors, merci à tout le monde. On est content que vous êtes parmi nous. It's a really important, critical situation that we are dealing with. C'est très déchirant. Et puis, j'apprécie le fait que vous avez pris le temps de venir avec nous. Je suis avec mon leader, Jagmeet Singh, mon collègue Charlie Angus, et mes collègues provinciales, Frangelina et Jamie West. Alors, on va commencer notre entrevue et nos démarches pour cet événement. Charlie.
Well, bonjour, Kwekwe Wache, je suis Charlie Angus, je suis très fier de participer à cette conférence de presse. I really think it's important that we look at this in the much broader picture. We know the economic devastation that is going to hit Sudbury with the gutting of Laurentian University, but I'm very, very concerned about the effect it will have on all our communities through Northern Ontario. The programs that are in place now that make it possible for young anglophone, francophone, Indigenous students to get post-secondary education. Laurentian has opened the doors for generations of students and made it possible to get an education that is second to none. What we're seeing with the cuts is not just the stripping of key programs, but making the programs that remain functionally useless. The nursing programs, if you're going to get rid of your coordinators, the people who are being able to place students, you don't have a nursing program. So here we are in a pandemic and they're cutting the nursing program. The midwifery program, 100% fully funded. And they're cutting that. That will deny services to francophone women across the north. To me, it's a crime what's happening. The attack on the engineering programs, and we have the deepest minds in the world and expertise that was built up in Sudbury. The physics program, when we have a Nobel Prize-winning physicist involved in the work that's happening in Sudbury, and they cut the physics program. To me, this is an insult. It's an attack on what generations have built up. And so we are here today with our leader, Jagmeet Singh, because this is not just a local or regional issue. This is a national issue. We proved that with the national parliamentary debate. We had participants from across the country, members of parliament who recognize what is happening at Laurentian is a national crime. We have received a number of promises from the Liberal government to be at the table, but we don't have any specifics from them. So our job at the federal level is to remind the Prime Minister, hey, he slept in the bunks at Laurentian University. He used Laurentian University for his cabinet retreat. He has an obligation at this time to work with us to come to the table. We are pushing the Liberal caucus. We are pushing the Liberal MPs from Northern Ontario to show up. This is something that is very, very vital to our future, and it would be a complete travesty if we sat back and watched Laurentian go down at this time, because generations will be affected. So I'd like to turn it over to our leader, Jagmeet Singh, who from the get-go called me on this and said, how do we help? What do we need to do? How do we bring all the effort of the National New Democratic Party to bear to work with our provincial colleagues to fight for Laurentian? So I would like to turn it over to our leader, Jagmeet Singh.
Merci Charlie, merci infiniment, merci tout le monde pour être ici. C'est exactement ça. On est ici pour sauver l'Université Laurentienne. C'est une institution fondamentale pour toute la région du nord de l'Ontario, mais en particulier, c'est une institution essentielle pour la francophonie, pour les francophones, en particulier dans le nord de l'Ontario, mais à travers la province. C'est essentiel d'avoir une université qui donne des services, qui donne une étude en français. C'est une institution essentielle pour la communauté autochtone. Le programme des études autochtones, c'est un programme qui était fondé par la sagesse de notre communauté autochtone, des personnes âgées qui ont beaucoup de talents, de connaissances. C'est une institution essentielle pour tous les jeunes dans le nord de l'Ontario. Donc, c'est essentiel qu'on garde cette université. C'est la volonté de toute la région, c'est la volonté de tous les gens. C'est particulièrement important pour Sudbury, pour la ville, pour toute la région. Donc, ça, c'est pourquoi on est ici, pour sauver cette université. On a vu un gouvernement provincial qui croise les bras, fait rien. On a vu aussi un gouvernement fédéral qui donne des belles paroles sans avoir un geste concret, des actions concrètes pour sauver cette université. Avec notre engagement comme pays bilingue, on a une opportunité d'utiliser notre position au gouvernement fédéral de garder une institution bilingue comme l'Université Laurentienne. So I want to make it very clear, we are here today to save this university. This university is fundamental for everyone in the North. It is fundamental for francophones, for young people who want to pursue education. They can't go to the South. It's not an option for them. We're going to hear from some validators today who will talk about that. This is fundamental for Indigenous communities. There is no other place for them to go. And so many Indigenous elders were part of creating the program that has been established that is so important. And we'll hear from people about what that means to them. This is so important for the city of Sudbury and for the surrounding region. It is so important for so many people. I've spoken to people who tell me that the university, the Laurentian University, is where local high school kids will go to for their swimming meets or for their track meets, for athletics. This is an institution that is at the heart of this community, and it will be devastating, the job losses and the impact. We need to be investing more in the North. We need to be investing more in opportunities to go to school, to pursue higher education. We need to be investing in young people's future. And this is the exact opposite. So we are here to fight to save this university. And I want to thank everyone once again for being here. And I want to pass it now to hear from people's direct impact. So we've got Professor Nadia Virelli, professor of political science at Laurentian University, who's been directly impacted, to talk about what this means for her and what this means for the community and for her students. Nadia, thank you so much for being here. Professor Virelli, and please, the mic is now yours.
Bonjour, Annie. Hello to le monde. I moved to Sudbury in 2014 when I accepted a position at Laurentian. I was excited to join the university. Their unique mandate, bilingualism and triculturalism, spoke to me. This was a university like no other in Ontario or in Canada, giving students an opportunity that they would not otherwise have. I have loved every minute of my time here. I have many, many fond memories, including meeting great colleagues who are my friends now, meeting and teaching young, determined students like Caitlin and Connor, hungry to learn. Laurentian is a hub for francophones, for Indigenous communities. We bring these people to the North. We keep them in the North. The students, the faculty, the support staff, we are the heart and soul of Laurentian. We work every day to fulfill the mandate to build an inclusive community. I am proud to be a part of the Laurentian family. All of this came to an end for me on April 12, 2021, when I, along with 100 of my colleagues, were fired, and when I found out that over 60 programs, including mine, political science, was canceled. I was blindsided, dumbfounded, and hurt. I willingly gave up so much to be here and to build the Laurentian family. I'm here to tell you that the process under the CCAA is secretive and is cruel. The way we were told we lost our jobs was equally cruel and inhumane. In less than 10 minutes over a Zoom group meeting, our careers at Laurentian, our family, came to an end. And for me, it ends on April 30th, 2021. We were then told that we would not get severance. This is a right afforded to all Canadians under the Employment Standard Acts. Confusion remains about our pensions and when we can access them, putting us all in a financial bind. But my colleagues and I are not the only ones hurting. The students are in pain, left confused, not knowing their next steps. At least 800 students were directly affected by these cuts. The community that worked so hard to establish and build the university is angry, confused, and bewildered. We lost a lot of programs, too many to list here. these programs, the program cuts disproportionately affected the Indigenous communities and the francophone community and marginalized groups. These programs that were cut, these serviced our community in a meaningful way. These programs helped realize our bilingual and our tricultural mandate. We lost a part of Sudbury and Laurentian's unique soul on April 12, 2021. My heart is heavy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Varelli. I really appreciate your words and the impact it's had on you, your colleagues, and on the students. Now I want to introduce one of the students that's been impacted, Caitlin Cotilla. Caitlin, first of all, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. And I pass the mic to you now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So my name is Caitlin. I'm currently a fourth-year student at Laurentian University, where I was double majoring in political science and communication studies. I made the choice to attend Laurentian University because it meant that I could afford to obtain a post-secondary education and remain in Northern Ontario. As someone who has lived in Sudbury my whole life, I have seen how our city has transformed from a small mining town to a thriving cultural hub, largely thanks to the incredible contributions of the Laurentian community. To me, Laurentian University has always been a beacon of hope. It is a home for many working class and first-generation learners. It is a space where Indigenous culture and francophone culture are at the forefront of our learning. And for 4 years, I have been proud to be a Laurentian student. And through learning experiences that are unique to Laurentian, my life has been forever enriched by the knowledge that I have gained, allowing me to directly contribute to my community in so many meaningful ways. But on Monday, all of that was ripped away from me, and hundreds of others. On Monday afternoon, I was heartbroken to learn that my programs had been terminated, along with the faculty who, quite frankly, are one of the only reasons I have made it this far in my degree. This decision left many of us grieving what was and scrambling and unsure of what the future holds. The cuts that have occurred put in jeopardy many people's ability to pursue an education, whether it be in the field that they dream of, in the city that is accessible to them, or in the language they need to thrive. And if you ask me, that is unacceptable. The qualities that Laurentian has fostered are worthy of defending. And while these cuts are going to have a devastating impact on the local economy and the greater Sudbury community as a whole, these actions are so much bigger than me, and they are so much bigger than Laurentian. What we saw at Laurentian should have never happened. And if it can happen at Laurentian, it can happen anywhere. And if the government doesn't step in and protect these vibrant communities and ensure that our public institutions are properly funded and preserved, then it's only a matter of time that we will continue to see mass cuts and devastation and the loss of important cultural hubs all across the country. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Incredibly powerful words, Caitlin. You have done your classmates, the university, and the institution really proud. Thank you so much for that. That was very powerful. I want to now invite our next speaker, and also a student at Laurentian, to, again, thank you so much for being here, Connor, and to invite you now to take the mic. It takes a lot to be able to speak on this type of forum in a press conference, so I appreciate both you, Caitlin, and Connor. And now I pass the mic to Connor Lafortune.
Merci. En bonjour, Indigenous. Je m'appelle Connor Lafortune. Je termine maintenant ma deuxième année en Indigenous Studies à l'Université de Sudbury avec une double majeure, l'une à Thornlow et l'autre à Laurentian. I came to Laurentian because of the tricultural mandate. I could be both a francophone and an Indigenous person when entering these spaces. I could learn about the local people, of which one is part of my home community. But I didn't have to leave a part of myself behind. I could speak Nishnabemowin in English with my friends and turn around and ask for services in French. The cuts, or rather changes to these programs, as they like to say, represent more than the end of our education in Sudbury. For Indigenous people, it represents the end of the second oldest Indigenous Studies program and the loss of not only our teachers, but an entire community that we have built for ourselves in Sudbury. It also represents yet another example of exploitation, taking our teachings and our knowledge, but letting go of those who hold them. As Indigenous people, we study our culture in a different way. We do not simply do that in the academic sense. We plant our roots. We do the work to learn about the communities that surround us and aim to maintain these relationships. When we think of our Indigenous teachers, we are not simply referring to them as professors, but as an extension of our family. As Indigenous Canadians, we have been let down by institutions and the government, and this isn't any different. We are simply repeating history. En tant que francophone, ça signifie la fin de l'éducation française pour beaucoup d'entre nous. Lorsque j'ai appliqué à l'université, mes deux seules options franco étaient Ottawa et Sudbury. En tant que francophone, nous avons nulle part d'autre à aller. Haven't we fought enough already? C'est le même combat que ma grand-mère a eu, le même combat que ma mère a eu, et il me semble le même combat que la génération après moi aura. Pourra-t-on arrêter de se battre un jour? Donc, même si je peux continuer à étudier ailleurs, je comprends maintenant où je me situe en tant que personne francophone et autochtone. Merci.
Incroyable. Merci infiniment pour toucher cette réalité importante, le fait qu'on a rassemblé une communauté autochtone et la communauté francophone dans cette institution. C'était incroyable, vos mots. Merci infiniment, Connor. Merci. We've heard directly what this really means from students, professors, and I don't think I could do any more to add. The powerful voices of the young people and the professor that directly are impacted. They've shared exactly what this means. And that's why it's so important for the federal government to step up and to provide support. And that's why we're here. I also want to acknowledge our fighters at the provincial level, my friends and colleagues who are also raising their voice to protect this institution. Just want to acknowledge Jamie West, MPP, and MPP France Jelena, both from Sudbury and Nickel Belt, who are here also. Thank you so much for being here. Donc, on est prêt maintenant pour vos questions. I'm ready now for your questions. Thank you to the media for attending. And I pass the mic now to Nina to handle the next portion of this press conference. Nina.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Donc, j'inviterai les membres des médias d'utiliser la fonction « Lever la main » au bas de la page pour donner votre question et votre question de suivi. Je vous demanderai, s'il vous plaît, de vous identifier et d'identifier le média pour lequel vous travaillez. So, I would like to invite members of the media to use the raise hand function at the bottom of the page to ask your question and follow up. I would ask you to please identify yourself and your media when it is your turn to speak. So we will go ahead and start with Chelsea Papineau. Please go ahead.
Thank you. This question is for Mr. Singh. What kind of help are you looking for the federal government to give Laurentian specifically?
Thank you very much for the question. Specifically, we need financial support. We need to keep this university alive and what it means for the people. We've heard directly from Caitlin and Connor. This is an institution that is the real option for francophones, a real option for young people in the North, a real option for Indigenous communities. And without this, this would be a devastating blow. And the role that the federal government can play is, as a country that is committed to bilingualism, there is a role to play in supporting a bilingual institution like this. We are calling on direct financial support to save this university. We know that means working with the province. We also want to call out the fact that the province has not done enough to support this institution. But at the federal level, the Liberal government has to play a role in protecting this institution, and that's what we're calling for.
Thank you. And a follow-up to that is there was a closed letter between the university and the province that hasn't been shared. What would you encourage the province to do in order to step in to help this university with this crisis?
Well, one is to acknowledge that this is a crisis and the devastating impact this is going to have on so many people. I think that that's been missed on all this. This is not about just saving a university. This is about saving the opportunity of a bright future for young people in the North. This is about giving francophones the opportunity to pursue education in their language. This is about Indigenous people having the opportunity to learn in an institution that has built an Indigenous studies program that is one of the a very special program in the world. This is about making sure we have real investments in the North so that people in the North can continue to thrive and to prosper. So this means a lot. And that's why it's so important for all levels of government. Absolutely, the provincial government needs to step up. But there's a role for the federal government to play. And I really want to point that out, that the federal government has to step up and cannot let this university fail, cannot let young people's futures be snuffed out this way. We have to fight for this. And that's why we're here.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, je veux dire que c'est essentiel qu'on garde cette institution parce que ça veut dire pour les francophones dans le nord de l'Ontario, des francophones à travers la province, c'est une institution spéciale qui donne des services en français. Pour la communauté autochtone, c'est une institution qui donne des études dans la communauté, en respectant les traditions, les connaissances. C'est essentiel pour le Nord d'avoir cette institution. Donc, ça, c'est pourquoi on exige le gouvernement fédéral de jouer un rôle. Bien sûr, le gouvernement provincial a un rôle à jouer. Bien sûr, il doit faire leur travail, mais j'exige le gouvernement fédéral de reconnaître l'importance de le bilinguisme et le fait que c'est une opportunité maintenant de garder une institution bilingue pour protéger le bilinguisme, pour donner des services aux francophones, pour donner des services aux communautés autochtones. C'est essentiel qu'on garde l'Université Laurentienne.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Mary Keown with the Sudbury Star. Please go ahead.
Hi there.
Hi
I
there.
would like to know, I have two questions actually. I would like to know how realistic is it at this point that funding is restored to Laurentian, and how much funding are we talking about? And secondly, the provincial government announced yesterday that they're recommending that NOSM and L'Université de Hearst become standalone degree granting institutions on their own. I was wondering if you'd like to comment on that.
Certainly. First of all, it is absolutely realistic that we can save the university. There is no question about it. We have seen when government wants to take action, they can do incredible things. We have seen some really important help. We fought to get help to Canadians in this pandemic, and we were able, as New Democrats, to push for real supports, and we were able to deliver them. If the Liberal government chooses to, we can absolutely save this institution. We can absolutely save Laurentian. So that's one I want to make really clear. There is an absolute path here. We can save this university. And I want to also point out how important it is to do that. This is the broad desire of the people of the North, of people of Sudbury, the surrounding Nickel Belt, and the surrounding entire region. People want to see Laurentian University saved. It is important for so many people. It is vital for so many people. And then the second question around other institutions, we should be always looking to expand the opportunities for learning and expand opportunities in the North, and looking at ways that we can increase opportunities for higher learning through other universities. That is always an important thing for us to consider. More opportunities for learning is better, but that does not take away from the fact that we need to save Laurentian University specifically, what it means to people, what it means to the North, what it means to Francophones, Indigenous communities, young people, what it means to people in Sudbury. So those are two ideas that can be maintained at the same time. We can expand other opportunities, but we have to save Laurentian University as well.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Alors, j'aimerais juste rappeler les journalistes d'utiliser la fonction lever la main au bas de la page pour poser votre question. I would just like to remind members of the media to please use the raise hand function at the bottom of the page. Prochainement, j'ai Philippe Mourat, je crois, avec Radio-Canada. C'est à vous.
Oui, bonjour, c'est pas Radio-Canada, mais bien ONFR+.
Merci.
Monsieur Singh, est-ce que vous avez en tête une stratégie qui devrait être implantée pour permettre un enseignement en français de qualité dans la province de l'Ontario? On parle de l'Université de l'Ontario français, on parle de l'Université de Sudbury, l'Université Laurentienne, Hearst, Ottawa. Est-ce qu'il va y avoir une cohésion? Est-ce qu'il doit y avoir une cohésion entre toutes ces institutions et tous les programmes qui s'y trouvent, à votre avis?
Bien sûr, l'idée de travailler ensemble avec les autres institutions, c'est une bonne idée, et de donner un climat d'éducation pour les francophones, d'avoir des opportunités de poursuivre les études dans les autres institutions et la capacité de changer entre les autres, c'est une bonne idée. Mais ce que je veux souligner aujourd'hui, c'est l'importance de garder cette institution spécifique parce que ça touche à quelques enjeux. Le fait qu'en général, on a vu un manque de ressources dans le nord de l'Ontario, dans le nord du Canada en général. C'est une question nationale. Le fait que souvent, on a vu un manque de ressources pour les citoyens du nord du Canada. Donc, c'est un exemple de comment on peut maintenir des ressources dans le nord du Canada, dans le nord de l'Ontario. Deuxièmement, c'est essentiel de reconnaître que cette université laurentienne donne des services uniques, une expérience unique qu'on doit garder, on doit protéger. Donc, on est ici pour dire clairement qu'on doit défendre, on doit sauver l'université laurentienne pour aider les étudiants, les jeunes, les francophones, les communautés autochtones. Ça, c'est pourquoi on est aussi aujourd'hui et je veux encore souligner l'importance de garder cette institution.
Merci.
Je vous en prie.
Next, I have Chelsea Papineau with the CTV. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for my next question. So we've heard that some of the programs at Laurentian have maybe only had a handful of students, and there still is over 100 programs, undergraduate programs, and over 30 graduate programs at the university. So what does it mean to your party when you say save the university?
Well, what's happening right now is really gutting this university. We're seeing the francophone services being, the francophone programs being gutted. We're seeing massive impacts to, as Charlie outlined, one of our colleagues, Charlie Angus, MP for the North, he talked about the fact that if you've got a nursing program without a coordinator to help actually get nursing students into jobs, that doesn't really make it a fulsome program. The cutting of we have two students who just talked about the fact that their programs are going to be cut. The cutting of Indigenous studies. These are essential programs, and without them, this university is going to see a massive reduction in the ability to provide a fulsome learning opportunity. We need to see more opportunities to learn, not less. We need to see more opportunities for young people to live their dreams, not less. And what we're seeing now is really a devastating blow to a university, which is going to have a devastating impact on the North, on people, on students, on Sudbury as a city, on the surrounding areas. And that's why it's so important for us to protect the programs and really to protect this university so that people can continue to see a bright future in the North and an opportunity to learn in the North.
Nadia, did you like to add something?
Yeah, I just, if I may, I just want to make a comment on the what's been reported about programs only having a handful of students. While that may be true in the sense that they've declared that as their major, their specialization, we have programs that service other programs. So my department, my program specifically, and my program is not alone in this, we service in meaningful ways 14 other programs. So this idea that it was low enrollment, it is in a sense a little misleading. So I just want to point that out.
Chelsea, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, that would be great. And thank you for that, Professor Varelli. How would you prioritize the funding if there were to be a bailout, and how would the government ensure that it was sustainable going forward?
Those are very important questions, and I think we will have to answer them. But I think right now we're in an urgent crisis. And that urgent crisis is the loss, the devastating loss of so many programs, which requires immediate action to save. And then we need to sit down and figure out a way to get to sustainability, for sure. We need to find a way to make sure this university is able to continue and to thrive and to provide opportunities for young people for decades and decades to come. But right now, I think the urgency is we need to immediately provide some support so we don't see these devastating cuts. And we can figure out what is the right model for long-term sustainability. We can figure out what's the best way for the university to continue. But in a crisis, you've got to stop the bleeding. And right now, we've got to stop the bleeding. We've got to save the university.
Nous allons à notre dernière question. Alors, Philippe Mourat avec ONFR, c'est à vous.
Oui, Monsieur Singh, justement pour enchaîner sur ce que vous venez de dire, on est dans un régime de protection contre les créanciers. Est-ce que ce qui est en train d'être fait en ce moment pourra être défait? On est en train de sabrer dans des programmes, on est en train de jeter les bébés avec l'eau du bain. Est-ce qu'on va pouvoir, à la fin de cet exercice-là, rétablir ce qui existait auparavant?
Effectivement, ça c'est la grande question. Et pourquoi j'exige le gouvernement d'agir rapidement? Parce que, comme vous savez, avec n'importe quelle institution, quand on perd quelque chose, c'est difficile de le réétablir. Donc ça, c'est pourquoi c'est essentiel à ce moment de sauver les institutions pour sauver les opportunités pour nos jeunes, pour les francophones, pour la communauté autochtone, pour les gens du nord de l'Ontario. C'est fondamental à ce moment de garder cette institution parce que quand on perd quelque chose, c'est tellement difficile de le réétablir.
Philippe, avez-vous une question de suivi?
Non, ça va aller. J'ai posé 2 questions. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, ceci met fin à la conférence de presse. This concludes the press conference. Would you like to go for closing remarks?
Thank you very much. Again, a big thank you to everybody sharing your stories, to the students, Caitlin and Connor. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. Merci infiniment pour partager vos histoires. Les histoires donnent une essence réelle de le vrai impact de ces coupures. Donc, merci infiniment. Having your stories really gives the real feeling of what this means and how this will impact students. So thank you so much for your stories. Professor Varelli, thank you for sharing your perspective as a professor and as someone who will see the impact on their students. I really appreciate you sharing. Big thank you again to my team, Charlie Angus, Carol Hughes, for being here and for your voices on this and for fighting for the emergency debate on this topic. We've been fighting for the people and we'll continue to do so. And a big thank you again to our provincial colleagues, MPP Jamie West and Franche Elena, for being here as well. This is our New Democratic team fighting for the North. We will continue to be here. On se bat pour vous, on se bat pour le Nord de l'Ontario, on se bat pour les francophones, on se bat pour la communauté autochtone, on se bat pour les jeunes. We're here fighting for Indigenous communities, fighting for youth, fighting for francophones, and we will not stop our fight. Thank you so much. Merci.